Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Dungeons & Dragons 1980s cartoon, and we're going to ask the question, was the Dungeons & Dragons 1980s cartoon Dungeon Master character a good Dungeon Master? So this question actually came from a frequent commenter. I think it's a fantastic question, and I'm going to answer it today. So let's kick it off. What did he do that was good, and what did he do that was evil? All right, and does his good outweigh his evil, making him a good Dungeon Master? Because I think at the end of the day, Dungeon Masters are going to do things that are evil. Dungeon Masters are going to do things that are good, and their good needs to outweigh their evil. Right? That's my criteria for a good Dungeon Master. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would a Dungeon Master ever do anything evil? Well, I would say because all Dungeon Masters are flawed human beings. Basically, you know, if you run a campaign for a year or two, you might be fine and you might not do anything evil. But the reality is, I think if you put like 5 years behind the screen, you're going to do something evil. I really think that's the case. So we got to talk about good and evil, right? I definitely think I've done things that are good, and I've definitely done things that are evil. I don't like to say this, but I recently listened to somebody that said if you're gonna talk about something, you need to have some emotional truth, right? And so, you know, in the spirit of emotional truth, I think one of the things I've done that are evil is I've been married coming on 30 years, right? And I can think back, and I think there's probably 1, 2, maybe 3 times where I can very specifically remember I was frustrated with a situation. I was frustrated with a person. I came home, right? And I said something incredibly cruel and biting to my wife, right? And it had nothing to do with her. And I said those things because she was in close proximity, and she couldn't defend herself verbally, right? She just didn't have the chops to do that at that moment. And I used an opportunity to say something cruel and biting, and it was 100% evil, just evil. Evil as the day is long, right? And I think some people would justify it. I don't put any justifications, and I deeply regret those times. And I have apologized to my wife for those times. That doesn't take the evil away, right? It was an evil act, right? So let's talk about Dungeon Master. What did he do that was good, and what did he do that was evil? And the reason I said that is I believe evil is real, right? And I think when you come to when you're talking about a fictional character, I think the measure is there more good or is there more evil? If there's more good, you can say the character is good. If there's more evil, you could say the character is evil. And I do also think that all humans, all humanoids are flawed, and there's going to be an evil act in their life. So what did Dungeon Master do that was good? Well, he quested the player characters, right? He quested Eric the Cavalier, Hank the Ranger, Diana the Acrobat, Sheila the Thief, Bobby the Barbarian, Presto the Magician, and Uni. He quested them, right? And when he quested them, I think there was distinct purpose in that, right? He was questing them so that they would become stronger and more skilled, and I think he was also doing it specifically so that Faerun, the world of Dungeons & Dragons, was blessed. It is my opinion that the Saturday morning 1980 world is Faerun. So basically, that's my take, is that his questing them was good, okay? What else did he do that was good? He made sure that nothing ever truly horrific happened to... He made sure that none of the team, right? And I just defined the team. None of the player character team. I think I'm going to call them the crew going forward. None of the crew were physically harmed significantly, right? Nobody lost an eye. Nobody got an arm chopped off, right? And I think Dungeon Master would have stepped in if they were going to be physically harmed. So that's 2 goods, right? What else did he do that was good? I think that his puzzling was good. He gave them a lot of puzzles, right? And what were the puzzles? So he would always speak in riddles, and I actually think this was good. It challenged them, and also I think it was lighthearted and fun. And this is one of the things I think is absolutely incredible about this Saturday morning 1980s American television show, is it showed that there were times that the crew with multiple members were deeply, deeply sad and did not want to be in Faerun. They wanted to go home, right? And this is like critical. It is just absolutely critical that their mourning, their sadness, their deep disappointment over their situation was very adamantly clear, right? And just shocking, like really, really shocking and surprising, right? And I think his riddles and his puzzles, and every time he was there, he always had a smile, and I think he was doing good by giving them riddles to solve, by always having a smile for them, always looking dope in his clean, vestments, right? Presentation matters, right? I think all of that was good. What did Dungeon Master do that was evil? He definitely did something that was flat out evil, in my opinion. So what I think that Dungeon Master did that was quite clearly evil, okay, was that Dungeon Master never returned the kids home. I'm fully aware of the fan-made ending. That's not a real ending, in my opinion. And the show strands the kids they never return home, right? That's on Dungeon Master. Like, it was on him to return them, and we never see that, and we can't credit him with that. We can't credit Dungeon Master with returning the crew back where they belong. We just can't, because it doesn't happen, right? Not in canon, right? So I really feel incredibly strong that that this was evil. This was an evil act that he never, and he held this carrot over their heads for so long, and had them going so many places, and they came so close to going home, and for them never to go home, I think was an evil act. Just very much an evil act. And here's the other thing is, I am convinced Dungeon Master had the power to send them back. And I think the reason why they ended up in Faerun is because Dungeon Master brought them there. I definitely think that Dungeon Master brought them to that world, to fight all the different, horrible things that were going on in their world. He needed true champions. He needed people that he could guide. And I think he's, the kind of like godlike figure where he's like, we're going to break a few eggs to make an omelet. And I think overall he had the power to return them, and he chose not to. So that means there are 3 things that he did that were good, and 1 thing he did that was evil. And with that said, I think Dungeon Master was a good Dungeon Master. Now, let's talk about Dungeon Master from the perspective of how a Dungeon Master functions today, right? Guiding people. I actually think he was an extremely good Dungeon Master from that perspective, because they always were in great adventures, right? And actually, his guidance was much more, he gave much more information and many more clues than most Dungeon Masters give, I think. Most Dungeon Masters don't have that, I'm here. They don't talk in that way. I think that Gary Gygax did, and I think you could have gotten away with that in the 80s and the 90s when the power of the Dungeon Master was incredibly high. The power of the Dungeon Master has shriveled tremendously, as far as, I think nowadays, a dungeon, like in the old days, you just had to pick up the book and run the game, and if you had players who were engaged, they were going to be there, right? But nowadays, there's just so much more that that really pulls them away, that Dungeon Masters need to do a lot more very, very fast wish fulfillment to keep players engaged. Because if they don't, video games certainly will, right? And the latest Netflix movie certainly will. And whatever book, Stephen King just, put out certainly will, right? So I definitely think that's there. But overall, I think Dungeon Master is a good Dungeon Master. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think Dungeon Master was a good Dungeon Master or an evil Dungeon Master? Love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.